In this video, we're going to take a look at the XML file that the 11 Rack generates whenever we use save all rigs to computer. And of course, that is the same XML file that we need whenever we choose load all rigs from computer. I just want you to understand exactly what it does and what it means, okay? Now we have Pro Tools open here. Again, you don't need Pro Tools open. You don't even need Pro Tools at all for the standalone 11 Rack editor. In fact, we don't really need it for this. Just be aware that if you're in Pro Tools 10 or lower, you have an integrated editor and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to make the same kind of files. Okay, the same XML files and the and the rig files. Be exactly the same. Okay, let's get Pro Tools out of the way here because we don't need it at all. And right now, let's go ahead and look at an XML file that we've already generated from a previous video. We have it here in our downloads folder. Again, I don't save my rigs to my downloads folder. I think I've made that clear in previous videos. I actually save them to my G drive in their own 11 Rack folder. But just for my ease and your ease, download folder is easy for me to access. So let's pop in here and let's take a look at this XML file. So we'll go to this XML file here. As you can see, it's the XML file. Now to open the XML file, you can use, I'm right clicking that by the way. You can go down to open with, again, I'm on Windows. That should be pretty obvious. You can use Notepad and you can edit with Notepad. I don't recommend it because it's hard to understand what's going on. It's not a code editor. You can do it though. I mean, it's completely possible. It's not that difficult. I would just recommend something else. There's a lot of things out there. Brackets is free. You can use Dreamweaver. There's plenty of free XML editors. What I'm going to recommend that you use, again, because it's free, it's pretty lightweight. It's not heavy on your system at all, is Visual Studio Code. It's like a really lightweight IDE or integrated developer environment. Okay, so it's not as robust as Visual Studio, but it will do everything you're going to need for your XML files. Now you can actually open your XML file with something like, say, Microsoft Edge. So there we go. We can open it. We can see it. Only problem is I can't click in here and I can't edit it. And we're going to need to edit this. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click it. I'm going to open it with code. And you can disregard this here. I had this open earlier and it's just an automatic thing. It will save for you. All right. So this is our XML file. Make it a little bit larger so you can read it. Now I want to go over what this means because we're going to be modifying this in a video to come. All right. What does all this mean? 11, we have XML, we have all these brackets and slashes and words. What do they mean? Well, let's go ahead and break it down. 11, that's our opening tag. This 11 contains all of the other code blocks. So this is sort of like the master code block if you want to think of it like that. There's things called methods. There's things, I'm not going to get into that. That's going too deep. So basically we have the word 11 and you can see these brackets. That's opening what's going to need to be processed by the actual 11 Rack. Because the 11 Rack understands all of this code. It understands XML and it needs to see the word 11. You can see it's open right here. Those two brackets mean open. Now down here, we can see this block is closed. The entire code block now is closed with this slash and 11, of course, are brackets. Same thing for our patch list. You can see it's closed here. Then our patch closes here. And all of our patches close after being executed, opened and executed. So we can see 11 gets executed, then the hardware type, and then it ends hardware type there, then it executes patch list, and we saw down below that patch list then gets closed off, and after this, then it executes the patch, and each patch here is its own little code block right there. So patch is open, this is what's within the patch code block, and then patch closes, then it opens the next code block, or the next patch, executes this line of code, and so on and so forth. So what does this mean? Once we get to the patch, then we have the bank, the type equals a string, literally looking for A1. Very easy to understand that because it's called A1. And this is of course our user rigs. We can't load things into the factory rig area. So it's looking for A1, capital A and 1. If I change this to a lowercase a, wouldn't do a damn thing. All right. So it has to be literally A1. That's what the bank is looking for. From there, it executes the file and looks for a type of string. And this is what would be known as basically a literal string because we have the quotes. So it's going to execute hate. There has to be a space. M2 equals B30 equals 57 in. And by the way, those equal signs in my case for this rig, they mean stereo, which I explained in the original video, I think. Then 57 in .tfx. And that ends the file. And that ends that patch. And then the computer basically goes out and says, okay, what's the next thing to do? Oh, well, now I'm going to look for A2. And I want what I want to fill A2 with. Well, I want a file type. I want it to be a string. I want it to be exactly this file. Then it closes that file. And that's what loads onto the 11 rack, or this is what saves from the 11 rack. All right. I don't want to go too deep here. I just want to explain what this means because we're gonna need to know a little bit about this later on. Okay. So again, by literal string, let's use this for example. Hate M2 B30 57F. Come back to our downloads folder. It's contained within this folder here. So hate, we have an M2, a B30, and a 57F. Right here it is. It's going to literally look for this file. It's going to look for it in this folder, by the way. Your XML file and all of your rigs have to be within the same folder or it won't be able to pull them onto your Avid 11 rack. Okay, and we can show this really quick here. This won't take but a second. Let me open up File Explorer real quick here. Let's come into downloads. This will be the easiest way to do this. Now I'll just move this over. All right. And you can see there it is. It's no longer in this folder here that our XML file is contained in. So the file we just moved out of that folder was the A2 rig. So A2 currently is a rig called name. Okay. So now if we go to load all rigs from computer, we're in our downloads folder. We'll come to that XML file that we want, which is right here. Just grab it, hit open. Immediately, we have a problem. Unable to load rig settings because a settings file was not found. And that's the exact file that we moved out of that folder. So that is why I'm trying to tell you, you have to have the rigs within the same exact folder that your XML file is in. Okay. So we'll just grab it. I'll throw it back in there. Okay. Just minimize this for now. Now we'll come back, load all rigs from computer, grab it, open. Look at that. Executes just fine. I'm going to cancel it just for now. And don't worry about that. It actually found the file. It's just because we, because we canceled it. It actually loaded up some of them pretty quickly there, as you can see. But that's, that's where it canceled it. Moving on. What if, let's come down further here. And let's say we were in here where we're editing something and we change this from, actually, you know what, let's do something that's a little bit different. We'll say, make it a small W instead of a capital W, okay? File, we'll save it. Okay, and this is the G1 bank, which currently has the war M2 on it. So now we'll come back here, load all rigs from computer. We'll just choose the same file, open. All right, then we'll navigate to our G1 and it worked. So capitalization wasn't a big deal. Okay, but what if, let me actually close this and go to a different one here. Let's pop in here to say reprisal. And here's our XML file right there. Let me go ahead and open this with code. All right, so we'll just focus on this first one here, which, by the way, all of those rig names are exactly the same as the rig names in here. What if I did something like this? What if I mistook something and I was in here editing and I got rid of that dash there? So now there's just a space. Make sure we save it. All right. Come back to our 11 Rack Editor. Now we'll go to load all rigs from computer and navigate to where that is. Right in here. Open. And we have a problem. So I'm just showing you this so you know that if you come in here and start editing this XML file, make sure the names match exactly. I mean, capitalization may not be a problem. It really depends on the language, but it wasn't a problem for us. But as you can see, our reprisal M2 in here is a dash M2. Now, a funny thing, if I were to come in here now, watch this. Let's get rid of that dash. Okay. So I just changed that file name. So now watch this. We'll come back here. Load all rigs from computer. We'll choose that same XML file, open, and now it's going to load, no problem. Pretty cool, right? So again, just showing you that to let you know that these names are literal. That's why we have quotes around them. So we can come in here, right there. You can see it's named reprisal M2 without a dash, and the rest are named M2. And once again, all of our rigs have to be within the same folder as our XML file as we showed previously. All right, so again, all of this is just so you understand that your XML file must match whatever the literal names of your rigs are. Otherwise, you're going to get an error. And this is going to come into play in a future video where we sort of make our own custom sets. I just want you to be familiar with the XML file before we get to that. Let's do something cool here, weird. Let's just come to, oh, I don't know. Let's go to a rig. Let's say this one here. And we're going to go save, and we're going to go save to computer. And for now, I'll just put this in the downloads folder. Save it. Okay. So now that rig will be in our downloads folder. Open it up, and here's that rig right there. Now what I'm going to do is let's just stick to this XML file. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to drag it over here. Okay, so now we have our hate rig right here within the same file as this XML file. Now, if I did load all rigs from computer, it's just going to completely ignore this rig because it's not mentioned anywhere within the XML. But again, just so you are aware, I can actually edit this file instead of, say, going to the 11 Rack Editor and saving the rig as save all rigs to computer and generating that XML myself. I can write in the XML myself if I want. So what I'm going to do, the easiest way to do this is to grab this whole file path. I'll just copy it. And now, instead of bank 1, which is already the reprisal because we already loaded it, instead of bank 1 being our reprisal, I'm going to paste in that name there, Control V. All right, so now it's the hate MDR 65W. And again, we've already moved that rig into that folder there. Okay, so make sure I save that. Very good. Come back to our 11 Rack Editor. Come here, and we'll go to load all rigs from computer. Choose that XML file, the one that we just edited and saved here. Click open. Now it's going to dump all the patches again, even though they're already on there. All right, and come in here to user and look at this. Ba-boom. Right there. So we edited the XML file ourselves, and we pulled in that rig sort of manually there instead of saving it with the 11 Rack. You can do that. Most of the time, it's a lot easier to actually just load all of the rigs onto the 11 Rack and then let the 11 Rack do the work for you. But again, this is about the XML. I want you to understand how it works. So you can actually just grab a bunch of rigs that you want, open up any XML file that you already have for the 11 Rack, and just go in there and manually edit it. You know, if I wanted to, I could grab a bunch of these different rigs here and just throw them over in this folder here with this XML document, and then go in and edit the XML myself so they're placed in the exact banks that I want. Okay, so hopefully that just sort of illuminates what the XML file is. It's not a scary thing. It's not a magic thing. It's literally, it's just code. It's really easy to understand. XML is not that hard to understand. As you can see, it's basically just saying, hey, this is 11. It's an 11 rack. Our patch list is open. Now we're going to execute the patch. It's going to be A1. What are we looking for A1? Well, we're looking for hate. A literal string of hate MDR 65W7N. And then it literally looks in the same folder wherever the XML file resides. It looks for this exact file, and it will pull it into the 11 rack, load it, and save it whenever we use that load all rigs from computer. Then that file closes off, the patch closes off, and the next patch opens, so on and so forth. So that is how your XML file works. Again, you can come in here and start editing things yourself. It's not really that hard. Although in a future video, I'll show you how what I consider an easier way of actually just pulling your rigs onto the 11 rack first, let the 11 rack do it, then go in and edit your XML later on just to shorten it up. As you can see, we have shortened this one up. It only goes down to E4. We don't have all the other rigs in there. Okay, which if you remember, come down here, we still have our war rigs down here. Even though we use load all rig from computer, it didn't load anything past E4. See, this is our hate rigs that we loaded earlier. And down here is our war rigs. All right, so hopefully that helps you understand exactly how the XML file generated by the 11 rack works and how you can edit it yourself. And hopefully now you understand that you need to have all of your rigs contained within the same exact folder as your XML. And you also know how you can come in here and edit things and move things around and whatnot. All right, so that is the 11 rack XML rig file that gets saved to your computer whenever you choose save all rigs to computer. And that is the same XML file that gets loaded onto your 11 rack from your computer whenever you choose load all rigs from computer.